gentlemen, this is Mao Shajaz, and thank you so much for liking, commenting, sharing, and giving us all your feedback. I'm here with a special person who's a very special person in my life, who's a very special person as a person on her own. It's always fun to have my catch ups with her. So I've done this with her before, but with a different panel of guests. This time it's a one-on-one, and why I'm excited about this one-on-one is that it's not an interview, but it's a conversation, and a conversation with a friend is one of the best things. So I hope it's as therapeutic for you as it is for me. Welcome to the studio. Welcome to my podcast, Anamika Chatterjee. Hi, Anamika.
Congratulations, Mavash. On your own podcast.
Yes, on my podcast. Yeah, which is like, hota hai, nahi hota hai, happens, then I stop and I start. But yeah, this time, yes, it's officially on.
No, but I've heard some of the episodes and they sound lovely.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving me your time. I know you have a very busy, packed schedule.
Please, no.
Yes, you do. Anamika is one of the editors at Khalij Times. She takes care of City Times. She has been taking care of Weekend Magazine. If you've seen it, if you've watched it, I've had the pleasure of working with Anamika, under Anamika, and alongside Anamika. And it's Anamika. This is one of the things that I want to start talking about with you. It's about being a woman in journalism in 2024, and you've had a long and illustrious career. Tell me about your career and tell me what it's like to be a woman, and we'll talk about what are the experiences we've had and how we've navigated through sexism, through different kind of experiences in the digital world as well, because you and I are very digital beings as well. And one more interesting fact is that Anamika was the digital editor of Masala UAE before I was. So I think our destinies have somehow overlapped.
Yeah, I used to look at you with envy. Who is this person who's just, stepped into my shoes and is doing a better job? It's always such a difficult pill to digest. I think the first time I ever spoke to you, I told you this also, that I'm sorry, but
I think we ran into Bath and Body Works, was it?
Bath and Body
Works, yes.
And I was like, I think I told you very openly that you're doing a very good job.
I do not recall this conversation at all.
No, but yes, so we've had very similar experiences, and which is so incredible because we are from two different countries.
Yeah.
And
yet two similar countries.
Two such similar countries.
Yeah.
We are almost same age.
Yeah.
And our experiences have been very, very similar through the media.
In the UAE as well, yes.
Yeah. So when you talk about being a woman in journalism, both are experiences in themselves, right? Being a woman, and being in journalism, because the industry is changing so fast.
Rapidly, every day there's something new,
Right? Now, when we were starting out back in India, and I'm sure you can say this for Pakistan as well, there was, every role was important. You could be a back-end person, and that was very important. You could be a front-end person, that was very important. And there was importance attached to each and every role. I now feel, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that because of the rise of social media, it's become very important that you create your own brand. It's very important to become a front-facing person. But as a woman, when you are in front of the camera, you're also facing judgments all the time.
Yeah.
More
judgments than men, I feel.
More judgments, yes.
I feel like a man can just get up and wear a t-shirt and jeans and face the camera, and he will not face the kind of any trolling or questions about why his face looks like in a certain way, or why his chin is a certain way.
Yeah, and the thing is that the camera, speaking in front of the camera, was once also about different things. It was about enunciation. It was about the content of what you had to say and how you had to say it.
Yeah.
But because the industry operates from a male gaze, so you want a woman, you want a younger woman, you want that younger woman to look a certain way.
Yes.
Right. And that is where I think I have a problem. And, I have not faced it in my own organization as such, but I do see that being the norm. And that is why I have been pushing myself, as have you, to go out and talk about these things through the platform of TED or or these conversations.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on it? Because you have been a presenter. You started off. Right?
Yeah, I did my first program in 1996 on Pakistan television. I was a little one, and at that time it was just exciting. You got a day off from school, and you're like, oh, it's a nice trip with your dad, and you're having sandwiches in the studio. So it was, you didn't really think of it, obviously, because you're very young, you're 14, 15 or something. And then when I started my work in broadcast much as I grew older, I noticed that, if you're sitting in the makeup room, the man will come and it'll be just like a light bit of puffing, and that's it. He's ready to go. He's ready to face the camera. But and I was a young girl. I wasn't like somebody who needed massive things done on her face. I was a young girl, but I had to sit in the makeup chair far longer. So that was initially, I was like, oh, well, he's done quite soon. And I had hosted a live telecast on Pakistan television in, I think it was 2012 or 13 with Farhan Ali Agha and a bunch of other, people who were on our panel. And I remember that, Farhan was this gorgeous, tall, good-looking man, and obviously he didn't need anything any which ways. But I was like, okay, he's ready, and like he just has to come into the studio, get ready, and sit in the chair. And it was a live telecast, so we were all pressed for time, and I had to sit in that chair, get my hair done and my face done properly, because this was the norm. One had to look a certain way. So I'm not saying that, I mean, I've learned so much from Pakistan television that has been my base. But I feel like it's this constant pressure, and it's not new. It's just this decades and generations of sexism, of how we expect women to look like, how we expect them to be perfect on screen. God forbid if a woman has a hair out of place, or her skin isn't glowing. And as you like, I feel like what your point about the younger women is that when younger women made their way into social media, they kind of were more savvy than us. Like they were probably doing the videos while we were writing articles or thinking about what to ask in interviews on our text. And I've always enjoyed text so much. And I think writing is my first love, even though broadcast and all comes naturally to me. But by the time those girls were ahead of the curve, we were still like, okay, is this something we're supposed to do also? We're supposed to front videos also? That I think is where we kind of got a bit of a delayed track. And now we're expected to know it all, do it all. And kind of still
and look good at the same time. And
it's an added pressure when there's motherhood attached, or there's being a homemaker, or if it's your responsibility to know where's the water and if the clothes are ironed or not ironed. There was this one quote I read by I think it was a video. I think it was on Satyamev Jayate with Amir Khan's old, show, and a clip was surfacing on social media, which I really loved, and where a woman said that, I don't know who that person is. I'm sure you probably know, but I don't know who that was. But she made such a fabulous point. She says when a man comes home from work, he's expected to be given dinner, and then he'll just go to sleep because that's his work is done. But when a woman comes home from work, she's supposed to make dinner. And then another person said in the same show that when a man works and he brings home the cash, the children don't eat cash. The children eat roti. They eat bread. So who is the person who's converting that? So I think that women's jobs, or the work that women do, has been reduced to zero. And it's like, it's not now. It's not a digital age phenomenon. It's been there for forever. That the housework or the chores in the house are not divided equally. Therefore, the work that women do is considered...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's unpaid labor.
Unpaid labor. Exactly.
It's unpaid labor.
Yeah, exactly.
But, did you face any prejudices once you became a mother for the first time, when it came to fronting something?
When it came to fronting something, I think now that I look back, and there were a lot of comments, I can talk about how I got the kind of comments on social media that, oh, you've gained weight. And I still get comments like that, like, why have you let yourself go? Oh, you have a double chin. Oh, your nose has grown. And my nose has actually grown.
You look lovely, please.
No, but like my nose has grown. If I look at my previous pictures, my nose has grown, because it's like hormones and babies and cesareans and PCOS and all of that, right? And I'm very open about my PCOS. I'm very open about my struggles with health and diet and everything. So I do face that when I'm in front of a video for social media. and I get to read the comments. And sometimes they're very mean, they're very hurtful, they're very cruel. And I remember when I was at Masala, I was interviewing a lot of women in the celebrity world, and I asked about them, how do you feel when you're trolled for your looks? So each woman, and Anamika, this is like not anecdotal, I can do a research on it. Like each woman told me a story about, oh yeah, one time, somebody said this. Then another woman was like, yeah, I do face that, and I feel hurt and I feel bad. But what to do? It's part of social media. I don't read the comments. And categorically, 90% of the men I had interviewed, when I asked them the same question, they're like, nah, we don't really face that much of criticism on social media. And I'm like, wow, what must it be like to live that life?
Absolutely. And I feel that these comments, as much as you ignore them, somewhere they do have an impact.
Yes, and they, like there's a lingering voice. Yeah, and then and these comments are what you think of when you're scrolling through your own pictures or your videos, or you want to edit a video and like, yeah, does my nose really look that big? And does my hair not look in place? Do I need a nose job? And I swear to God, I'm one of the most self-confident people I know. I'm very happy with how I look and who I am. But ever since I became more present with my face on social media, like I've always had my face on television, but that's television. There's a comment that comes to you. You're on broadcast, network. So until and unless, and our directors used to be really harsh, our producers used to be really harsh. So they used to be like, this color doesn't look good on you. But that's like between you and her, and it's a closed space, and you're relatively safe. Where somebody is giving you feedback about whether something looks good on you or doesn't, because it is at the end of the part of the fronting video bit.
Aesthetics,
yes. But to like open yourself to, like, these days I'm posting videos almost every day, and almost every day I'll get one person. There's always going to be that one lady or that one dude, and it's so sad when women do it.
Yeah.
It is so sad when women do it. Like I will always, maybe I will have a mean thought also. We all have those mean things that come in our heads, but I will never go and say to somebody like, look at your nose, look at your clothes, look at what your teeth look like. Women do it. It's so saddening to me. And men doing it for the sake of pleasure or trolling or getting attention is one thing. Unacceptable also, but still. But like women doing it, and Anamika, this is also something I want to ask you. Like, why can't women be friends? I think you and I were great friends at KT.
We've had our moments.
The good ones and the bad ones.
Historic moments where we've charged at each other.
Yeah.
But here's the difference, that because of the generation we belong to, there's also a side that understands, that empathizes.
Yeah.
So once that
the millennial
charging is over, we understand each other's
why we did that,
where
were we coming from,
and also the limitations we have in our lives that make us feel bitter, insecure. And as I'm saying, I'm not above insecurity, I'm not above feeling bitter. And yes, it's a very important question that you asked me, because the sexism that I have faced in my life mostly has come from women, not men. Men have, there is a male gaze. I cannot deny it. But when women do it, it hurts more, because you are the one who's supposed to understand my struggle, right?
Yeah.
You are the one who's supposed to empathize. You are the one who's supposed to know that it's not easy.
Do you also feel anger at the fact that, hey, I didn't do this to you, why are you doing this to me? Like I feel angry about that when a woman does that, because I would never pull the carpet from a woman based on her appearance like that.
Not just appearance, it's about everything. It's about every form of achievement. Now, achievement is subjective.
Yeah.
For me, like as I always tell you, the fact that you have broadcast experience, the fact that you can edit video, the fact that you've always had a robust social media following, these are achievements, and these are something you've built yourself. But you will inadvertently find women who are envious, and to a certain extent you can understand envy,
sure,
but dude, don't come in the way of my peace.
Don't actively go out and destroy other people.
Absolutely, because here's the thing, that you don't know what my challenges are in my personal life, right?
Exactly.
I mean, with due respect, when you spoke of women in journalism, typically your career, goes up and up in your late 30s, in your 40s,
Yeah,
40 to
yeah.
50 is such an important time.
Yeah.
But what are women expected to do? You're expected to also become a mother. It's an
Yeah.
extremely challenging
Yeah.
role.
Yeah.
Or or you have to make a choice that, okay, let me delay. These are not the choices that men
Men-
have to face.
To make, yes.
This is biology.
Yeah, yeah.
This is
it's biology, babe. Yeah.
It's biology. So, so when that is why what happens is that when you are at our age and stage, a woman, stinging you feels
It's like a cherry on top.
feels very different,
Yeah. Yeah.
तब आपको लगता है that, okay, what about feminism? It's about,
उड़ गया window से.
we talk about women supporting women, but
How real is that? Do you think that it exists?
it exists among a certain circle of women who
Or is it a type of people? Like, I've always seen you support me, and I've always seen you like back me and have faith in my talent and push me. Like, even I was like, and I'm like, I don't want to do this, and you're like, no, why don't you want to do it? Go, do it.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's not always the case. Like, there are people, like you said, like envy or professional jealousy or whatever. They'll be, and I feel sad because there is enough space for everyone today in the digital age. So why? I feel like it's about a person. That's my opinion. That it's about each person. I don't think solidarity as a mass phenomenon exists.
It boils down to the kind of background you come from. Now, I come from a community which is, very centered on women, right? Our literature, Bengali literature revolves around women as the protagonist.
Yeah.
Growing up, the men I saw in my life exuded power, but the actual strength was in the women, be it my grandmothers, both maternal and paternal side, or be it my mother. And then, I did my college in an all-girls college in
Yes, so
Delhi.
did I.
Really?
Our stars keep meeting at weird places.
Yes, so the solidarity, and in that environment, when you are reading about feminism and you actually believe in these ideals.
Okay.
But when you enter the real world, you're competing.
Yeah.
You're always competing. And the older women, what they often do is that because they have had such a difficult journey, right? Through climbing this ladder, they were probably the first generation of women to enter the workforce,
yes,
etc.
yes.
They feel that you also need to go through the similar rigor.
Yeah, or they don't care about what you're
Or
going
they
through.
don't care.
Yeah, there's no sense of
Or-
empathy.
Yeah. Or, they feel that you have to go through the same rigor. No, things become easy for every generation. They become difficult also for every generation, but differently. Like, I don't expect the younger people who are entering journalism now should go through what we went through, like getting coffee for editors. Like, they are very, very woke. But they will have different challenges.
Yeah.
Right.
And different ways to survive.
Different ways to survive. So,
No, I feel like when it comes to women in general, and my background is also an all-girls college. For 4 years, I studied at an all-girls college, but I made best friends for life. And and then you're absolutely right. So I don't really know the community as such, but I've also grown up around very strong women. And I've grown up with a father who was like, oh, I'll wash my own dishes or I'll do my own work. And you don't have to tell him to wash his own dishes. He would just do it. And he would get us ready for school, or if my mom was doing something else, if she was working, because she used to teach and all of that. So it would be him who would be doing all the other chores. Sometimes he would make his own food. So it never really occurred to us that a man isn't supposed to do it. Although there were other men in my family who probably didn't do it, So I've grown up with a dad like that. And he was a very proud girl dad. And he was one of the people who had faith in me the most. So you're absolutely right. And I totally relate to that experience, that when you step out in the real world and you're like, wait, are men not supposed to be like that? Are they supposed to question you at every step of the way? What is this? But the good thing my dad did, and this is what I want to tell every girl out there, is that, or every father out there, if you have a daughter, be your daughter's hero. The first hero that she knows should be you. Because you're not don't fear that, oh, I'm going to spoil her for life. She needs to be like, no, that men are not like this. No. She will hold that as a standard. For the men she knows, and she will
Absolutely.
expect better.
Yeah. For example, my father has always been someone who's been vulnerable. So for me, when I see men who
Shut themselves off.
shut themselves off, or who
Alpha male.
who feel they are invincible, that is a very no, be vulnerable, na yaar. I mean, just cry. The world would be a better place if you
men
cried.
cried. Yes,
Instead of stocking all those complex emotions inside of you for 10, 20
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Why do women move on very easily? See, I move on very easily, even from a setback. And I believe so do you. I've seen you.
It depends.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
right.
depends, yeah.
Because we are
Resilient.
talking,
And-
exchanging views.
Yeah, that makes us resilient.
Yeah. And some of us are also, like I said at the beginning, listen, I have been bitter. There is a certain honesty
And
to us.
acceptability.
Acceptability that I have been a lesser person. It's fine. I don't
It was
want
a
to
moment, it's past, now I'm ready to be
now-
better.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
Okay.
But men, or at least a certain generation of men, I find younger men are more vulnerable. And once you accept your vulnerability, I think a
But
certain
it's
road
about the
clears.
background, I
It's
feel.
it is
It's
about the background.
But
of
you
course.
do have a point though, that this generation with the exposure to social media is becoming more and more aware of how they're supposed to treat women. It may not always be perfect, and it may not always be 100%, but I think that they are like most of them now know. And compare it to the boomer generation, where they were like, okay, I'm at home now, I will smoke my cigar and go to sleep. So now I don't think it's that easy for them to behave like this at home.
No, not at all. I mean, it's not easy, and there are checkpoints.
Yeah. yeah, good one.
There are certain checkpoints which weren't there when we were growing up, or we entered this workspace or this social space, right? We always met men who we couldn't really decipher कि भैया चल क्या रहा है इसके
हाँ,
साथ.
सही है.
Right. There are a lot more checkpoints. There are conversations about DEI. So those have helped. But again, backgrounds are very, very important, because even now, see, social media has also taken us back in terms of
Like how?
conversation. Like as I said,
A cancel culture.
a woman, cancel culture, and also woman should look this. A woman, why is it still continuing? Yeah. That is, I mean, it's also a platform where we call out these behaviors, but but it also
But we
enables.
also enable, and we are a part of that norm also. I would also probably look at, oh यार ये ऐसी मुंह उठा के आ गई, मतलब कुछ मुंह नहीं धोया.
I mean, instinctively a woman-
you think, but then because it's not been accepted.
Yeah.
And your brain will think in terms of the norms, right? And that's such a good point you raised, because I feel like when we are packages for social media and we are brands for social media, like with me and all the followers I get hate also, and I get like trolling also, and I get all kinds of people. There are people who really hear and want to know what I have to say about certain things, and they ask me like, can you please comment on this, can you please talk about that? And you're so right, is that we have gone a step back also, because we want these influencers or these people to talk about a certain thing, but let's say my opinion is not the same as yours. Right? Like, for example, somebody was like, oh, what are your thoughts on this drama? Because, I talk about Pakistani dramas, and I was like, well, I don't like it. How can you not like this drama? And how is that possible? Bhai, I don't like it. Matlab, I see a flaw and I'll talk about it. So you're absolutely right that we are a fodder to the beast that we feed. And we are the beast and we are the fodder.
No,
in a way.
absolutely.
Yeah, and they're so right that we wouldn't accept it, and probably a lot of the other things, these things would be accepted previously. Like I was just talking about to a friend that if you had to do a critical review of a piece of art or literature, which is a part of art and literature, critique, and in Urdu we say in tanqeed. Tanqeed is a part of adab or literature, or critiquing in English, like the critique part in English literature or history, is what people did for living, just the same as we do it today. But now I feel like it's been diluted so much. Like everybody's a reviewer, everybody's a critic.
Yeah.
Everybody can say anything, and then just and they're like, oh well, that opinion is there, and therefore because it's written somewhere on the internet, therefore it must be true.
Mavish, it impacted, and I know that I've spoken to you about this, that this created such a fear in me that I stayed away from social media.
What fear?
The fear of judgment.
Okay.
And the fear of what we expect from women on social media. Firstly, we are very opinionated beings, right?
Yeah,
That is the point of
Yeah.
education, that is the point of reading.
Yeah.
And when you are writing, like we are also writers, you are meant to be very opinionated, but there is a certain nuance to your
or
writing.
logic. I mean, I have to present some kind of logic.
But at the same time, when you are a woman who's facing the camera, because of all of these judgments that come in, अच्छा आपकी नाक ये है, आपकी ये
Appearance पे comments.
appearance, oh you have
These
big chin.
cheeks
I love
and
my
this-
food, okay, and I'm entitled to like my food, but you know, the fear of this judgment basically meant that I decided not to do any videos ever. You know, even now, I know you've been telling me to, you know, do something like this with my own social media channel. But if somebody like me who's exposed to modern conversations is getting affected like this, can you imagine what it does to younger people?
Maybe somebody who doesn't have that kind of self-confidence. Yeah.
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 You know, confidence is also, not all of us are confident. I'm very comfortable in admitting, bhaiya, nahi hai confidence. I have to, as I said, that I have anxiety, right? You're never really at your optimal confidence levels when you have anxiety.
Of course.
But I have to prepare doubly hard for something than somebody who doesn't have anxiety, right? But that's okay. But this constant judgment, it just deactivates you at certain
It
level.
deactivates you and it stops you from producing the work that probably matters a lot in
Yeah.
the larger scheme of things. Like, I feel like a lot of times I want to critique something, but I wouldn't because I'm like, yeah, somebody's going to come and they're going to pick out this point and they're going to make it. Sometimes I'm brazen about
But
it.
you've been very fearless on social media.
Imagine what I would have said if I wasn't. you know?
Yeah.
So I'm quite bold and open about my opinions, but I still hold myself back. So that's another spectrum, that point of the spectrum. You're talking about how somebody who's even got no confidence or is dealing with double amount of anxiety compared to somebody who doesn't, is still like holding themselves back, probably preparing again and again, and then now I have to go and do this, I have to go and do this. And then compare it to me. Like, I have no anxiety about being in front of the camera. And I still am like, oh my God, if I say this, this is going to happen. Somebody's going to come up and say this, and somebody's going to say this in the comment section. I also have to prepare. So it's like there's a generation of women from around the spectrum feeling insecure about what they have
And
to
self-sabotaging themselves.
self-sabotaging 100%. So I always what I actively do to kind of change the algorithm of the universe, or the my input to the artificial intelligence that is being fed to us on our phones, is I always go and like the creators, and I like and I comment or I share is the most vulnerable ones. Like you said, like vulnerability is such a gift. And the moms who are showcasing their messy houses, not the perfect moms with their white walls and their white plushy cushions, but the moms who have their untied hair, the funny moms, the moms that are talking about real struggles. I'm not very open about a lot of private struggles that I have about motherhood, but I am so in awe of these women who are talking about these real issues, about what they're going through with their children or their husbands or their breakups, or maybe there's a single mom who's talking about how she's raising her boys, and some woman in like sub-Saharan Africa is talking about what her routine is like. And a lot of these creators are on TikTok and they are amazing. And I feel like that's another mistake we make, is that we dismiss platforms like TikTok and
Absolutely.
and it's digital gurus like us. At the risk of sounding obnoxious, the guru word I'm using is because we had the experience, and I hate how we have to justify accepting our own, like,
Yeah, why?
yeah, I don't know. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
So I feel like platforms like TikTok are so good for genuine creators. I feel Instagram is toxic as anything. And there I make sure that I like and comment all the philosophy video makers and people who talk about psychology and NASA and space exploration and educational videos, and people who are not afraid to put out their heart and truth on social media. But then again, I also feel there's a downside to that too. I feel like there are people who are milking that. And one example, which was like there was a woman who was crying on social media, talking about how she was a single mom, and all of that. And then her husband came and told her the truth about what kind of person she was. So it was a bit of a like a you don't know who's telling the truth, but I think that there's a the angel and the devil side of social media.
Yeah, where I have found it very useful, I consume a lot of content on anxiety, right? You take whatever, whatever you feel is suitable for you. For example, there was a write-up, a column, I think, in NYT, where some doctors were writing their own views on how these small reels on, how to handle anxiety, they don't do you any favors, and most of them are coming from people who are not experts. Now, here's my view. Yeah, maybe most of them are not experts, but isn't it also important to listen to somebody's lived experience, right? And
it absolutely matters. By
absolutely, like there is a very popular video of Emma Stone's where she says that anxiety is activating. Now, somebody like me can understand why it is activating, and just that thought, that one thought, stays with you.
Yeah.
Even if it comes in the form of a reel or
and it has verbalized something inside of you, which
it has given a language to you to basically articulate something that you don't know whether it can be articulated or understood.
And then it becomes a shared experience in a way.
It becomes a shared experience. So social media also has done a lot of good. Cancel culture not being one of them.
But I want to discuss this because I don't want us to finish this off without a very common ground between the two of us, Masala. And then now you're taking care of City Times. And, I have been a big part of the entertainment circuit as well, Bollywood, Lollywood, and Hollywood whenever I could, whenever I had the opportunity. So I want to talk to you about how celebrity world and cancel culture are also connected. When we talk about how we cover celebrities now, so much of it is controlled, obviously, by their PRs and by their agents, and how, and everybody knows how these things are done in much more mature industries like Bollywood. And Bollywood is far more cutthroat and far more powerful than Pakistan. So I want to ask about your experience there, because now with social media there and stars being very like, you can't ask them genuine questions. That's why people keep going back to Simi Garewal's Rendezvous, and they love those videos because the people were relatively more uncensored then.
Yeah, because, and you sort of understand, look, I've traditionally not been an entertainment journalist, right? And I identify myself primarily as a writer. So if I'm writing about you, I really need you to be honest, and I expect you to trust me that I'll present your vulnerabilities with a lot of nuance and perspective. What happens with the stars is that the reason they are so guarded, at least in India, is because they have a lot to lose. I believe it's also the case in Pakistan now, right?
I don't think so.
Little bit.
I don't think so.
No, that's why I love Pakistani actors. I mean,
they'll just say whatever. They'll just
I
say
watch
whatever.
more Pakistani dramas than Indian dramas because the themes are somewhat predictable, but there is a certain realism to the acting. But the reason I like to interact with them is because they are more authentic about their challenges. In India, what happens is a star says something about an important issue,
and then it goes haywire.
Yeah. And you have to understand that there is a lot at stake. So like, the big stars, the absolute A-listers, they are industry unto themselves. They have people under them who are employed. So they make
little armies.
Yeah. So they say something, an entire ecosystem collapses. Why would they risk that? So you understand that. You understand that about them. But I remember there is a very famous episode in Masala where we went to cover a very major actress. And there was the entire fraternity of UE journalists, and she said that I'm going to give an interview to everyone else, but not them.
Okay,
because
you guys.
not to us. You've not seen those times, right? And so the editor at that point of time, she was very mature, and she said, okay, we'll just move out. I was being a krantikari. I was like, she doesn't have the right to insult me in front of my fraternity, right? And I stood there and I was like, I was asking her manager, why is she doing this? Because you also have to understand that for one Bollywood celebrity event, even journalists have to wait like an hour hour and a half for 5 minutes, Mahavish. For 5 minutes, 10
I've
minutes.
been through that. Yeah.
Right. After a certain point, you feel that my time is also that important.
Exactly.
Yaar.
It annoys me to know. I think the only person I waited that long for was for Salman Khan. For any other celebrity, I'm like, if I'm waiting, I'm leaving. I'm not going to do it. I would probably get some other person to do the interview. I wouldn't wait.
Yeah, so we not only waited, after
You were
waiting,
rejected
he
also.
heard this, and then I took it up, and then, the manager softened, and she came to us, and she's like, she's been unhappy with something that your predecessors published. But, for me, I'm a very strong believer in dignity for journalists and writers.
Yeah.
Not every writer is the same, not every journalist is the same. Don't mistreat us.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Don't mistreat
And
us.
don't take our time for granted. Like,
Don't take
I
our
just
time.
annoys me to no end. It happens in Pakistan because everybody's on their own standard time. Nobody's on a, and the concept, and living in the UAE makes you very particular about time.
Yeah.
Because things here happen on time. I remember there's a premiere, again, I cannot name what event that was.
Tell me, Mavish, please.
After the podcast.
Yes, okay.
So there was a premiere here, and I remember because UAE will do things on time. They will not wait for your star tantrums and whatever non-issue things that you have. So they had invited all of these celebrities, and it made me feel bad for myself. Worse for people who had been told that these people would come and you will take a selfie with them on the red carpet and this and that. And these people did not show up until the middle of the movie. And so the people in charge, the cinema owners, they said, please, now it's time for the movie to start. Everyone has to move into the cinema. And the people they're like waiting at the red carpet for their favorite stars. And I was like, I hate this hubris where they have to just make it about themselves. Yes, it's about you. It's literally about you. But please don't take other
Do you
people.
think it's the agents sometimes?
No. In Pakistan,
Really?
because the agent culture, because the star is the most powerful person. In India, maybe the agent may be more stronger and pulling all the strings and everything. Like in case of Shah Rukh Khan, I think there's a recent interview of Farida Jalal where she's saying she was trying to communicate to Shah Rukh Khan, but his manager, Pooja Tatlani, wouldn't listen to her or wouldn't get them through. And I feel like Pooja has a lot of power because Shah Rukh on his own he's an artist.
Industry. Yeah.
And he's an artist mainly, right? He won't look into, what's my schedule like? Who am I supposed to have coffee with today? He's not going to look into that. But it's the agents which are more powerful in an industry like Bollywood because the star is that big.
Yeah.
He's not going to micromanage
Yeah.
things. But in Pakistan, A-listers and even B-listers, they have their little managers and they will be just told what to do. I don't want to speak to this person. Are you doing this? Am I not doing this? This is what they do. And it really makes me sad is when these stars aren't punctual. Okay, I can understand 5-10 minutes late. That's fine. That's okay. Even half an hour. Making people wait for 1 hour, 2 hours for when your time has been given at this, it's just, I feel like that's just wrong. You shouldn't do that.
Yeah, see, Shah Rukh, Priyanka Chopra, and Deepika. They make, even if they're late,
They make it up to
they
you.
make it up to you.
Yeah.
Because there is that sensitivity. And secondly, you have to understand, if I'm a mother of a child,
Yeah.
right, and I'm also a Bollywood journalist, I will wait for 1 or 2 hours.
After that,
I have to go back home to my life.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that is very important. And also just, you know why you don't always get authenticity from them. But then it impacts the writing.
Yeah. You're
Right.
already ticked off.
Yeah. So many times you see what they have said. The previous editor of City Times used to give me some of these interviews to do, and I would be transcribing, and then I would be googling the previous interviews of the same celebrity. And they have said the same thing in a previous interview as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So what exactly am I supposed to do with this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah.
So there is a problem in covering entertainment authentically. And also stars, for example, in Hollywood, like with the Gaza war happening, so many stars have come out and shown support.
Yeah.
Right? I feel that our stars are also very, very quiet.
But they did speak about Rafa. It was
They did, but
yeah.
not
very muted though.
very, very, very muted. You know, they don't participate in
In the
society.
discourse, yeah.
Society. Though the reasons are more complex, and as I said, one understands. But I wish that changed.
Yeah, yeah.
I wish
Because
that
I think it's a different world now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not traditional journalism anymore, and every person's voice matters. And it's, I mean, in Hollywood, Taylor Swift has, and I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan, and Taylor has gotten immense amount of flack. I myself have tagged her many times on social media saying, why aren't you speaking up? What is the purpose of all your talk about feminism and you know, speaking up for women? I mean, she's defended Lady Gaga because somebody made an offhand comment about her being pregnant or whatever. But what about the women in Gaza who are just, you know, they are facing the most terrible times there. So I feel like that kind of brand feminism or feminism to sell toothpaste is just
But that is also where we have to check the cancel culture, Mavish.
again, yes,
You know,
I agree.
Because there is a very famous interview of Amitabh Bachchan. He gave it to Arnab Goswami, where he went hammer and tongs about, firstly, celebrities don't always know about
What's going on.
Yeah. Or, you know, they probably may not be that invested in a subject as we are.
And I've noticed this with Pakistani celebrities also. I'll ask them, oh, do you know what's happening? Like in the Indian elections, but when they were happening. And I was like, oh, by the way, I asked somebody, I'm like, have you seen what's going on? You know, there's a huge change happening in India and BJP has losing to these votes and that. And they're like, huh? And these are like mainstream celebrities. They have no clue.
Yeah, so, you know, they don't probably go into certain depth, and I can grant
Understand
them that.
Okay.
But other than that, when stars, even in our part of the world, have spoken, their fan bases are so huge. You know, hashtags start, okay, you know, ban this, cancel this.
Yeah.
So how does a mind come into its own?
Yeah.
You know, in
And
that
how do you
kind of
learn?
how do you learn?
How do you learn or unlearn?
How do you, precisely.
Yeah.
So that's what makes you very measured.
But again, understanding your point about cancel culture and also adding to this is that I feel like some of the wokeness has also gone out of control. Like some of it is really good. It keeps us in check. It kind of makes us question things which we didn't. And I think that's really helpful in so many ways. Like, you know, you mentioned checkpoints. So now because of the social media checkpoints, men aren't as easily getting away with a lot of stuff as they did before. But now it's also gotten out of hand in a certain way. Like, for example, a small thing, if like, let's say somebody doesn't even know what the significance of that is, they'll be like, oh, why didn't you do this? And then there'll be entire armies, like you said, hashtagging and tweeting. And Sushant Singh's death was one of those key points where, you know, people who had nothing to do with it were dragged into it. And then people were indicted for it, not just on social media. It led to them actually giving answers to the police, you know? So I feel like, yes, India is definitely a very sensitive and a very... I would understand your point also, but I also would say that, like you said, it's time for also some things to change. Sometimes you can throw caution to the winds and also speak about some things, not everything. And I also agree. No, I don't want a celebrity's opinion on everything any which ways. Like, don't give me the news. You're not there for that. You're an artist. Go do a good role. Go sit on your set for 6 months. But then also sometimes use your voice positively. And my issue is with the artists who don't speak up. Like, I love Shah Rukh, but I wish he would speak up on certain things. I knew he used to.
He was so vocal. He's the most articulate,
eloquent
actor in the history of Bollywood.
Yeah.
He used to. But as I said, the scale is so big. And you know, one thing that people do not understand about India is that there are many Indias that exist within India.
It's a huge country.
You know, we all come from different cultures. You know, when somebody speaks about something, the southern states may get offended or something. So you're also navigating a very, you know, tough,
choppy waters.
But I get your point.
Yeah,
but
I think something's gotta give.
Yeah, but cancel culture, the reason I'm saying that it needs to be called out is because it leads to the end of some glorious
Conversations.
careers
And conversations.
conversations.
Yes.
Right, like, I mean, for example, DEI is a very good concept: diversity, inclusion, and equity. Right, but whenever I'm in a DEI workshop, um, I often wonder: is merit more important, or diversity for the sake of diversity is more important? Right. So wokeness comes with a lot of complex thoughts and complex angles, and we cannot shy away from these
Can't be that reductive.
We
Yeah.
cannot be that reductive, right? We have to factor in all the angles. You tell me, in an organization, or the simple mantra of any organization is profit,
Profit.
right?
Output.
So, output, right? So, would you hire somebody only for the sake of diversity at the cost of profits?
I think that again, it's like it's affirmative action in a way.
Yeah.
And it's about putting something in. Like, for example, I feel like diversity is important when you are hiring. Let's say it's an open merit position, right? Like, for example, I'll say that I'm hiring for an editor's job. Now, 15 people have come to the job. What's the problem with why I think that DIEI thing is there is because what's happening is that there's only, let's say, men in their 40s applying for this job. Now, if I have that diversity thing there,
Absolutely.
you will be like, okay, I've interviewed 10 men. Where are the women applicants? Or where is the applicant from a certain country or from a certain nationality?
Absolutely.
We don't see anybody in our roster here. That is where I think that would be important.
Yeah, but where, I completely agree with you, which is why diversity is also the need of our times. But my problem is that the minority, whether it is gender minority or any other form of minority, shouldn't be taking it for granted.
Oh, 100%. And I think
I can be bad at my job,
No.
but still cement my position.
Yeah.
That is my fear.
Yeah. But I don't think that it's that issue will not always happen. I'll tell you why. Because I feel like there's still a dominant force of and majoritarianism works in a certain way. And wherever there is majoritarianism, and I'm talking about any gender, ethnicity, wherever, anywhere, there is a balance that shifts. And to correct that balance, you have to have some kind of diversity initiatives.
Absolutely.
So I feel like it's a trade-off. But again, I agree with you. Don't take it for granted. I'm giving you a great opportunity.
See, I am a very big advocate of don't take it for granted.
Yeah,
Don't take
yeah,
your
yeah.
stardom for granted. Don't take your job
My time for granted.
Granted. Don't take my time for granted.
Yeah.
It is. There has to be accountability. I'm a
100%.
very big advocate of
And I agree with you,
accountability.
Anamika, in any organizations, and I've been through so many organizations, and as have you. That's another similarity your career and my career have had, that we have been through many kinds of places up and down. So because we're running out of time now, so just kind of understanding this, that the experiences we've had have also taught us this. And this is what I want to wrap our conversation up with, that all the things that we've seen in our lives, any place, any movement, anything that does not have accountability, that does not check itself, that where are we heading? Whatever we have done, have we achieved something? Have we achieved positive things? If there is no accountability, that whole thing is doomed. That whole initiative is doomed.
True.
So in closing, because again, we only have like 5 minutes left to this conversation, what would you say are the key takeaways in your career? What would you tell women in who are ready to come on board journalism in today's age? And what would you tell women of our age who are struggling like we are?
Struggling.
Yeah, struggling. I think we are struggling. I think so.
Yeah, see, the next generation of women are hopefully going to have it easier, because we are talking about a lot of things, a lot of challenges that we have faced.
And we've sort of
right?
smoothed over also.
The thing is, you have to be multi-skilled.
Yeah.
There is no concept of a linear career anymore. That you started off as a journalist, you
Therefore
end up
you will be, yeah.
as a journalist. No. Firstly,
Adapt.
you have to adapt. If this is the future of storytelling, video, audio, you have to, adapt to it. And secondly, don't straitjacket yourself. Don't create templates that this is a template of success. Like, I feel that horizontal growth is more important than vertical growth. After COVID, I don't think there is any concept of career left,
Yeah.
We only have
workforces have changed completely.
yeah, because the ambitions have changed.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do many things at the same time.
Yeah.
And, add those skill sets so that I become an employee everybody wants to hire. Right? Or I start something on my own. And I think it's very important to have an independent gig.
Hustle. That's the one
It's
word. You're going to leave everyone. I think that's important for all the ages and all the scales. So yeah, my take and my conversations with Anamika are hour-long conversations are also always ending up with, what do we need to do something? And we need to move. But yeah, I think hustle. That's been the key lesson in my life. And the age that we are in, not just our ages, but the age we are in, the digital age we are in.
Yeah.
Hustle, girls, move it.
And don't be afraid of struggle. Like,
Yeah,
that's
it's gonna
why I
come.
caught onto that word. Don't be afraid of struggle. Young people get very demotivated when they fear,
They have to do the work.
when they face rejection.
I think that's same for I also have
But
those.
that is also what makes you, right? Like a spew.
At that point, you're not thinking that. At that point, you're like, oh, why me, God? But yeah, struggle, girls, hustle, take care of yourself. Don't let the crazy trolls, dim your light. That's what I would say. And for women like us, that's
God
the way
help us.
God. On that note, thank you so much, guys, for joining in. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and stay tuned to see what Anamika does and what I do. God knows. God help us.
More power to you.
More power to you, to Anamika.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself, guys. Signing off. This is Mahua Shajaz with Anamika Chatterjee. Don't miss an update. Hit the bell icon and click on subscribe.